The night I met Claire Whitmore, the rain felt like it was trying to drown secrets out of the sky, and maybe it did. Because what she carried wasn't just a story. It was a storm waiting to break open everything I thought I knew about myself, my son, and the fragile peace I'd built from the rubble of my wife's death. If you've ever wondered what happens when two broken paths cross in the middle of nowhere, stay with me. And if the idea of love growing out of unlikely places resonates with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to this journey. Because this story, it isn't just about second chances. It's about the kind of rescue no one sees coming. Not even the person doing the rescuing. The first time I saw her, she looked like she'd stepped off the edge of a magazine cover and crash-landed into a nightmare. Midnight rain streaked across my windshield like frantic handwriting, the kind you scrawl in desperation when words are all you've got left. The wipers smeared water across the glass in tired arcs as I crept my old Silverado around a bend on Highway 212, one of those long, shoulderless roads that feels more like memory than pavement. It wasn't a place for walking, much less for standing alone in 5-inch heels, soaked to the bone, thumb out like she'd missed the last chopper out of Saigon. For a second, I thought she might be a mirage, something cooked up by exhaustion and the low hum of grief I never quite managed to turn off. But then she raised her hand, slow and deliberate, like she knew I'd stop. And I did. God help me, I stopped. She didn't look at me at first, just stared at the reflection of my high beams in the rain puddles, her hair plastered to her face, the hem of her designer trench dripping like it had forgotten how to be waterproof. I cracked the window and leaned over. "You lost?" I asked, half expecting her to pull a knife or flash a badge. "We're just looking for trouble." She turned then, and her eyes, wide, blue, and rimmed with the kind of mascara only the rich can afford, met mine with the steely calm of someone who'd already lived through worse. "Somewhere in between," she said. That should have been my cue to drive away. But I didn't. Instead, I unlocked the door. "You've got 5 seconds before I change my mind," I muttered, trying to sound tougher than I felt. She slid in like she'd done it before, though something told me she hadn't, and dropped her wet bag at her feet like it was filled with bricks. The smell of expensive perfume and cold rain filled the cab. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Eli, my 10-year-old, was still asleep in the back seat, arms curled around the beat-up duffel that held everything we'd packed for the weekend trip to my brother's place in Coos Bay. "My son's back there," I said, in case she thought this was going to be a joyride. She gave a tight nod. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," she whispered. "Just need to get away." I didn't ask from what. Not yet. The road stretched ahead in flickers of yellow line and shadows that leaned too long in the headlights. We drove in silence for maybe 20 minutes, the hum of the heater pushing back against the chill creeping in from her soaked clothes. I kept stealing glances, at her pale fingers gripping the edge of the seat, the way she kept checking the side mirror like someone might be following, the tiny shiver she couldn't quite hide even as she tried to sit perfectly still. She wasn't just running from a place. She was running from someone. "You got a name?" I finally asked. She hesitated. "Claire." That was it. No last name, no explanation. Just Claire. And maybe it was the way she said it, like she was still trying to believe it herself, that made me decide not to push. Not yet. I'd buried a wife, learned how to shave my kid's head for summer camp, and figured out how to do laundry with vinegar and prayer. I could let a stranger keep a few things close to the vest. We reached the gas station in Turner's Hollow around 10:30. The rain had let up some, but the sky still felt heavy, like it wasn't done grieving. I pulled in under the flickering light, left the engine running, and looked over. "You want something hot?" "Coffee." "Soup." She nodded, and I told her to stay put. Inside, I got 2 coffees and a microwave breakfast sandwich that looked more like a dare than food. When I came back, she was sitting bolt upright, eyes locked on a black SUV across the street. Her lips barely moved. "I think they're looking for me." I didn't ask who they were. I just handed her the coffee. "Then you might want to duck." That night, we didn't make it to Coos Bay. I took the back roads instead, an old logging route only locals still used, and checked us into a roadside motel I hadn't seen in years, the kind with buzzing neon, sagging mattresses, and a clerk who didn't ask questions as long as you paid cash. Claire didn't complain. She didn't speak much at all, just disappeared into the bathroom while I got Eli into bed, his little body still warm from sleep and blissfully unaware of how close we might be to something dangerous. Later, When I stepped outside to smoke the one cigarette I allowed myself a week, she joined me, barefoot on the wet concrete, her arms wrapped tight around herself, like she didn't belong in her own skin. I didn't think I'd really do it, she said quietly. Run. I've thought about it so many times. But tonight, I just did. Sometimes it takes a storm to wake you up, I said, flicking ash into the dark. Sometimes the world has to fall apart before you figure out where you're supposed to be. She didn't reply, but she looked at me then. Really looked, and I saw it. The fear, sure. The exhaustion. But something else too. Resolve. Like she was finally choosing her life instead of letting it be chosen for her. I didn't know then who she really was. Didn't know the name, Claire Whitmore, would show up in headlines. But that the man she was running from controlled a billion-dollar empire and considered his daughter a strategic asset more than a person. All I knew was that there was something about her that didn't feel like trouble. It felt like fate knocking in the middle of a storm. And I'd already opened the door. Morning came with a fog so thick it felt like the world was hiding something. Maybe from us, or maybe from itself. I stood outside room 5 of the Maplewood Inn with a stale cup of motel coffee in one hand, and the other shoved deep into the pocket of my jeans. It was the kind of morning where nothing felt real yet, not the fact that my son was still peacefully sleeping on a threadbare motel bed, not the woman behind the door who said her name was Claire, and definitely not the unease that had been twisting in my gut since I saw her staring out the window at that black SUV the night before. She came out of the room dressed in the same soaked designer trench coat from last night, now a little drier, but just as out of place here in backwoods Oregon. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, face clean of makeup, and for the first time, I noticed how young she really looked without all that armor. Maybe 28, maybe younger. She gave me a nod like we were co-workers on a break rather than strangers sharing secrets and motel walls. Thanks for not asking too many questions, she said. I figured the answers wouldn't help either of us sleep, I said, trying to keep my voice even. You want pancakes or the safer bet, lukewarm gas station donuts? Her smile was small but real. Pancakes sound dangerous. Let's live a little. I drove us to a diner about 10 minutes down the road. One of those places with chipped mugs, bacon that tasted like regret, and regulars who stopped talking the second a new face walked in. Claire kept her head down while we slid into a booth by the window. Eli was fully awake now and already grilling her with the natural curiosity of a kid who trusted everyone who wasn't holding a needle or a report card. What kind of job do you have? He asked between bites of toast. You dress like those people in lawyer shows. Claire hesitated, fingers tightening around her coffee cup before she managed a careful. I used to work in an office. Lots of suits, lots of meetings, not much fun. She glanced at me, something pleading behind her eyes. I nodded, letting her know the kid didn't need the whole truth. Not yet. When Eli went to the bathroom, she leaned across the table. I should have told you last night. My full name is Claire Whitmore. My father's Daniel Whitmore. I nearly choked on my coffee. I may not have owned a TV or spent much time reading magazines, but I wasn't living under a rock. Daniel Whitmore ran one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. His face was on business magazines, his company's name on every third bottle in the CVS down the road, and his reputation, well, it wasn't warm and fuzzy. The Claire Whitmore? As in the heiress? I asked, keeping my voice low. She winced. God, I hate that word. Running away from what? Money. Her laugh was humorless. Control. An arranged engagement. Technically not forced, legally, but emotionally, completely. It was supposed to finalize a merger, him and me tying the knot, his company and some offshore biotech firm tying up assets. I was just the ribbon. And the guy? I asked. Her jaw clenched. Married once before. Twice my age. Smile like a rattlesnake and hands that don't understand the word no. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. My fists were already clenched in my lap, and I had to will myself to relax. She looked out the window like she was remembering something she'd spent years trying to forget. I took my mother's old car and left a burner phone behind. I figured I had 12 hours before someone started tracking. I didn't expect the weather. Were you? You could have gone anywhere, I said. Why the highway in the middle of nowhere? She smiled again, tired. Because no one thinks to look for people like me where the gas station bathroom keys on a hubcap. Eli returned, chattering about how the hand dryer almost knocked his glasses off, and the mood shifted again. But I kept watching Claire out of the corner of my eye, wondering what exactly I'd stepped into. I'd picked up a soaked stranger, sure. But what I hadn't realized until now was that I'd also picked up a headline, a missing persons case, and maybe, if her father was half as controlling as she made him sound, a target. Back at the motel, Claire paced while I packed up our things. "You should let me go," she said. "Drop me off at a bus station or something. You've got a kid." "Exactly," I said, folding Eli's hoodie into the duffel. Which means I know what it looks like when someone's trying to survive something they can't outrun. "I'm not putting you on a bus. I'm not letting you walk back into whatever that was." "You don't even know me," she whispered. "Don't need to," I said. "You didn't run from comfort. You ran from something worse. And that's all I need to know." She didn't thank me. She just stood there with her arms wrapped tight across her chest, like she was afraid if she let go, she'd come undone. I knew that feeling too well. I made a plan. Called in a favor from my buddy Cal, who ran a campground near the coast with cabins he rented mostly to retirees and off-grid riders. No questions asked. No IDs required. I told him we'd stay a couple nights. Let the heat die down. Let her figure out what came next. By the time we hit the road again, Claire had changed into jeans and a hoodie I'd lent her from my sister's old box of clothes. Her hair was braided back now, her face clean, her presence still too polished to blend in, but something about her was softening, like she was learning to exhale. As the sun began to burn through the clouds, she looked at Eli asleep again in the back seat, and then at me. "You didn't ask what I want now." I glanced at her. "Okay, what do you want now?" She didn't even pause. "I want to find out who I am without being someone's daughter. We're someone's leverage." That was the first moment I realized Claire wasn't just running. She was trying to build something new. And I had a feeling we hadn't seen the last storm yet. By the third day at Cal's remote cabin, something shifted. Claire no longer jumped at the sound of tires on gravel or ducked every time a shadow passed by the windows. She was still cautious, careful with her words, always watching for the storm she insisted would find her, but she laughed more. She helped Eli build a driftwood fort by the river. She read old paperbacks on the porch. At night, when the fire cracked and the world went quiet, she sat across from me and told stories, some true, some wrapped in metaphor, all heavy with longing. Then the black SUV came back. I spotted it near the gas station in Tillamook. Same plates, same tinted windows. I didn't say anything at first, just cut our trip short and packed everything in silence. Claire watched me with wide, knowing eyes. "They found me. I think they were always looking," I said. "Now they're just closer." That night, after Eli fell asleep in the cabin's loft, Claire stood in the doorway with my flannel jacket wrapped around her. "I can't keep running forever," she said. "I don't want to hide for the rest of my life." "You won't," I told her. "You're not the one who should be hiding." She looked at me then, not like a woman on the run, but like someone ready to fight back, like someone becoming who she was always meant to be. The next morning, Claire made the call. To a lawyer, not her father. She was done disappearing. She was going to file for emancipation from her trust, leak her story to the press, and burn every bridge her name had once chained her to. But before any of that, she asked if she could stay just a little longer. "Not as a refugee," she said. "Just as me." I nodded, and maybe it was reckless, maybe it was selfish, but I said yes, because some storms don't pass. Some storms become home.